The Yellowstone. The volcano Yellowstone National Park inspires awe-in travelers from around the world. New Zealand and Iceland are known for geysers, but nowhere are there as many as in Yellowstone. At the heart of Yellowstone's past, present, and future lies volcanism. About 2 million years ago, and then 1.3 million years ago, and again 640,000 years ago, huge volcanic eruptions occurred here. The central part, which is now a park, collapsed, forming a 30 by 45-mile caldera or basin. The magmatic heat powering those eruptions still powers the park's geysers, hot springs, foamer, rolls, and mud spots. The Grand Canyons of the Yellowstone River gives deeper view of these forces. Its waterfalls highlight and boundaries of lava flows and thermal areas. Rugged mountains flank the park's volcanic plateau, rewarding eye and spirit.
We are here on vacation. We want to see the Yellowstone. We've seen the Rogue River in Oregon, and we've seen the Columbia River Gorge, and we love the nature. We love the geysers, but I think the more exciting thing is the wildlife.
The waterfalls were beautiful.
Oh yeah.
We like the waterfalls.
And the buffalo.
And the buffaloes and the elk.
And the elk.
Just about everything is just really nice here.
You know, 100 years ago, nobody realized what this next 100 years would be. We can't realize what the next 100 years will be. Yes, very important.
Yellowstone wildlife includes bisons, that is the buffalo, elk, grizzly and black bears, wolves, trumpeter, swans, and Yellowstone cutthroat trout. Vegetation types range from near desert vegetation at the north entrance to subalpine, meadow, and forests on mountain washburn. Lodgepole pine covers 60% of the 80% of the forested areas. What are the attractions in terms of types of wildlife, and how is the ecosystem within the park?
Well, I think when you talk about Yellowstone, you have to think about the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, which is 22 million acres. Yellowstone is the heart of that at 2.2 million acres, and so it is the nerve center of the largest intact ecosystem in the lower 48. I think people come to Yellowstone because of the abundance of free-ranging migratory wildlife at a landscape level that are relatively readily viewable. They're easy to see, and the systems, including the migratory systems and processes, are still intact, and that's a rare thing.
How has the Yellowstone or the National Park Services thought about engaging the youth and forget about the cities and the internet, and at least come here?
That's a huge emphasis for the National Park Services, engaging the next generation of stewards, and there's a call to action that the current director, John Jarvis, issued upon the start of his tenure. And that was one of the core tenets, was engaging youth. That was a huge part of the centennial, and it continues. I would suggest that the visitation season in the western U.S. in a place like Yellowstone, most of the youth are back to school right now, and so the fall visitation season is typically retirees and older demographic, and then also kind of another wave of international visitors. So it doesn't always look like 60 to 80-year-olds, but this is the time of year when they come to enjoy the park.
How is the U.S. government funding to the National Park Services within the U.S. to manage its, implementation of various projects concerning the wildlife conservation and management?
Well, I think that in terms of funds that are appropriated by the government to the national park system, we're grateful for what we get, and that the government funds what it can. I think that in the last few years, budgets have been relatively flat, which is better than true budget cuts. But with inflation, there's still a decline in buying power in the value of your budget dollar. Parks are more and more dependent on philanthropy, donations, and partnerships with other key stakeholders and organizations, and I think that that's going to continue in the future. The idea of national parks that are owned by everyone, that belong to everyone, are an incredible vision and idea, but it takes a lot of capital to do that. And you're probably aware, very visibly, the Park Service has a infrastructure backlog issue that we're trying to tackle with a lot of our appropriated dollars, and that's that just makes it more difficult to do all the things that we need to do.
Share with us your experience while in Tanzania. At that time, you're still working with the Yellowstone. Tell us your experience. What is that you could really share from the U.S. and Tanzania?
Well, I think that there's a huge symmetry between the protected areas in Tanzania and in the U.S., and particularly the National Park Service. And I think that you mentioned revenues and money, and the biggest difference that I see is that in terms of wildlife conservation is that wildlife are publicly owned in the U.S. They're very valuable as a public asset. Everyone feels ownership for them, but the wildlife also generate economic benefit to most everyone. And that's a really important concept that has helped protect wildlife and the natural resource values on the public lands in the U.S. What I saw in Tanzania and some of the other East African range states was that, for example, with some of the pastoral gateway communities to protected areas, they don't necessarily benefit economically from the wildlife, if that makes sense. I think that one of the big stories for the National Park Service that has been successful is that a park like Yellowstone, for example, is an economic engine. For every $10, or for every dollar that's spent in Yellowstone National Park, $10 ripples out through the local area and economy, and that benefits people who have restaurants, gas stations, lodging, hotels, motels, eco-tour businesses, a variety of things. And I think that because of that, people, they, for example, the gray wolf, they may not like wolves particularly, but somehow economically they benefit from that, and so wolves are valuable for them, and sustainable populations of gray wolves are important in that regard, whether or not they personally like wolves. And that keeps a common public stewardship of that value.
Yellowstone Safari Company has been providing first-class wildlife viewing and wildland recreation services in a safari-style format since 1990. Their tours are suitable for individuals, couples, families, groups, and all levels of ability. Their biologist guides facilitate unique nature-based experiences on the landscapes of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem and Montana. Our goal is to help you and your group to achieve just the right mix of new experience, education, physical activity, and fun. Safari Company offers a half-day, full day and multi-day safaris including hotel pickup, lunch, snacks, drinks, use of binoculars and sporting scopes, and your personal wildlife biologist guide.
And I'm a guide with a company called Yellowstone Safari Company. The word safari, of course, is Swahili, and it means to go on a journey, to take a journey. In our case, we see it, and we borrowed it from Africa, and we're taking people on a journey of enlightenment in the natural world, and in particular, to experience wildlife. We provide services in and outside Yellowstone National Park, but in general, we provide transportation, we provide some food services, but in particular, what the people really want, what they feel they're paying for, is the knowledge, special skills, special knowledge, special equipment. So we provide binoculars for the tourists to use to watch the animals. We provide spotting scopes, which is a terrestrial telescope for looking at animals that are very far away. And in addition, we provide a sense of security. So sometimes people are afraid of the animals, and we help them do it safely. We help them see the animals in a safe way. Special skill, special knowledge, special equipment, and a sense of security. Those are the four basic things that we're providing. Our busiest season is pretty much the 4 months of spring and summer and early fall. So June, July, August, September. But outside of that period of time can still be a great period of time for wildlife. So April and May, and even in the winter time. Winter is the best time of year for watching wolves. So we do operate year-round, but the truly busy season is when the weather is most accommodating, which is fundamentally summertime. Most Americans and most Europeans will take their holiday in the summertime. Most of our clients, needless to say, it costs money. Most of our clients come from the United States on each coast. That's where our large economic development exists, and Europe as well. So they may come from Germany, England, France, the Netherlands. We serve people from around the world. Recently, we're getting lots more customers from China. So the Chinese economy is doing very well, and we're getting lots more tourists from China as well. Our business does okay. We make a living. We're not getting rich. We're not becoming very wealthy, but we certainly make a living. We don't make a lot of money at this, but it is sustainable, and it's a very good quality of life. For most of the people who live in this region, they're not particularly wealthy. At the same time, we've made a choice to do this, to make a living, to get by, and it's a quality of life. So I'm very grateful that I can live the way I do. I'm very grateful that I can work on this wonderful landscape, and quite frankly, I feel it's a wonderful privilege to be able to live and work in this area and sustain our family, ourselves, our households, and our employees. So the economic impact extends beyond me. It extends beyond Yellowstone Safari Company. We buy food services, we buy motor vehicles, we buy equipment. So we're serving, it's a business that expands its economic influence in a very large way. some extent, outside the park, what you're describing probably are grazing animals. The animals eat the crops themselves. Around this region, sometimes a farmer may have a wheat field or a hay field, and the elk may go there and eat that plant and eat the crops. And so yes, sometimes consumption of the crops themselves can be a conflict. And then the state of Montana or the state of Wyoming would try to have perhaps either harass the animal away or possibly try to reduce the population. So now these are difficult questions. And at the same time, remember I said the wildlife belongs to the public. It's not the landowner. So sometimes the landowner, they want the animal because they may charge people money to hunt it, but they also want the crop. Well, you can't necessarily have both. You have to have some hunting and you want to grow your crop. You can't necessarily have both, because the state of Montana or the state of Wyoming or the state of Idaho will say, well, if you have too many animals on your property, have more hunters. And maybe the landowner doesn't want more hunters. Well, if you want to control the numbers, you have to have more hunters. So these are difficult. People have to make their choices as well. Which do you value more? The opportunity to charge someone money to come onto your land to shoot an elk, because they can do that. They don't own the animal, but they can charge for access to the land where they can then hunt the animal. You can charge a fee for that. You want to go on my land to hunt elk? Give me $100. I'll let you go onto my land to hunt an elk. I don't care if you kill one, but I'm going to charge you $100. So now you're making more money. And the hunting is often worth more than the crop itself. This is difficult. It's really difficult. Now there's other conflicts. There are actually diseases which may be transferred from the wildlife to livestock. Now you've got another issue. The elk may carry a disease called brucellosis. It's a bacterium that causes miscarriage of the young from domestic cattle. If that's transmitted to the livestock, you have a real problem. And so once again, perhaps the hunting can be used to regulate this. But again, these are not easy things to do. And there's lots of the general public that also wants access to the elk. So they may say, that landowner, I don't want any special laws for him. I want to be able to hunt those animals. He's not letting anybody hunt. Let people hunt. So there's public land that we can hunt, but I don't necessarily have access to the private land.
On 3 parts of the Grand Loop's Figure 8-shaped road system that connects the park's major attractions, the gateway communities of Jackson and Cody, Wyoming, and West Yellowstone Gardner, Silvergate, and Cork City in Montana. Within the Yellowstone area, there's a lot of business opportunities around. The park has created a lot of businesses such as restaurants, souvenir stores, and galleries.
I've been photographing in Yellowstone since I was in high school, so 36 years now. Professionally selling my photographs since 2007. And I've had the gallery here now for 2 seasons. Before, I used to let other galleries sell my images in places around the park and inside the park. But now it's pretty much just here and a couple other galleries. 2 animals that most people see when they come to Yellowstone are bears and wolves. Moose are also very popular, but the bear and wolf photos are the ones that I sell the most of. We have all the way from $5,000 to $3 cards. We have $50 small frame prints and prices in between. And many of my images I offer in several different sizes, so different prices.
Indeed, discover, experience, and enjoy the Yellowstone.